Can we never get to absolute zero? What a wonderful question. I wish I had a wonderful answer to go with it. Here's the problem. There is actually a law of physics called the third law of thermodynamics that says you cannot get to the absolutely zero. We don't really know it's true, but we are pretty sure it is for the following reason. Every time you think of some way of cooling something down a little bit, it means you try to get energy out of that thing and make the temperature lower. Well, if you can get energy out, usually there is a way that the energy can go in as well. And that always means there is a competition between taking the energy out and putting the energy in. Now you can try to make it so you are favoring getting energy out, but you can't completely stop the energy from going in, and that means you might be able to get colder and colder, but you won't be able to get all the way to absolute zero. Could we go back to my PowerPoint? Because I think that one of these slides will illustrate that point a little bit better. Yes, here, remember the logarithmic thermometer? There is no zero on this logarithmic thermometer, it just keeps going down. You make it a fact of 10 colder, you're not a zero. You make it a fact of 10 colder, you're still not a zero. You make it a fact of 10 colder, you're still not a zero. So you start a million of a degree, now you are 10 millions of a degree, now you are 100 millions of a degree. Now you are billions of a degree. You never get to zero that way. You get closer and closer, but you never get to zero. So that's why we cannot get to absolute zero. Globalization. What is globalization? I think that it takes on a few different definitions in one sense of the word. Globalization means proliferation of transactions across country. So, one way of thinking about globalization is a way to describe increased international communications, more trade happening between countries, and be less self-sufficient in providing goods and services to their people, and more companies that have offices in multiple countries, which we call multinationals. So the source of growth in travel and communication and corporate trade across borders. And this way of thinking about globalization is the continuation of thinking that has been around for a long time, such as when the Europeans went to the Orient to find spices, which was also an example of global trade and communication. Another way to think of globalization, though, is in an economic system. It is a system in which countries become integrated in a way that never had been before. In this system, we see a global split in the process between consuming and producing goods. Some countries produce goods, some countries consume goods, and then these countries in different areas of the globe depend on each other in a kind of organic, solitary, rather than having an economic system being just inside your country. The system is the way economy in your country functions, depends on economy of another country. And in fact, this way of thinking about globalization represents a new area of economic progress. The past industrialist economy has been a global issue.
Through the 1950s and into the 1960s, the idea of the Industrial Revolution was that it was the work of some geniusy inventors who created machines used primarily in the textile industry, but also in mining, that eliminated blocks to assembly line production, and then everybody was crowded into factories, and the new brave world opened up. In fact, one of the most interesting books and sort of great classics that's still in print was written by an economic historian at Harvard who's still around, called David Landis, a good book called The Unbound Prometheus, which was basically that. And some of the inventions that I briefly describe in your reading, the spinning jenny, etc., refer to that. Well, and then that kind of analysis led one to concentrate on England, where the Industrial Revolution began, and to view industrialization as being a situation of winners and losers by not going as fast. Now, that analysis has been really rejected greatly over the past years, because Industrial Revolution is measured by more than simply large factories with industrial workers and the number of machines. And the more, and this is the point of the beginning of this, the more that we look at the Industrial Revolution, the more that we see that the Industrial Revolution was first and foremost an intensification of forms of production, of kinds of production, that were already there. And thus we spend more time looking at, the intensification of artisanal production, craft production, of domestic industry, which we've already mentioned, that is people, mostly women, but also men and children too, working in the countryside, and that industrial, the rapid rise of industrial production was very much tied to traditional forms of production.